Welcome back to the second hour of the show with no name for March the 1st, 2013. It's a Friday. It's, I don't know, it's kind of an early spring day.
It's beautiful out.
Definitely, you know, the groundhog was absolutely right. Not only did the groundhog not see his shadow on Groundhog Day, but there are other signs of an early spring, the most important of which is Chip the Wonder Dog has shed enough hair to build a whole new dog. And my friends on Facebook tell me they're having similar experiences with their pets. So.
Really? All right. Well, that'll be good for our heating bills.
I mean, I petted him the other day, and I came out looking like the Wolf Man. I had this pile of hair on my back of my
cat
head.
hasn't lost any hair at all.
Oh, just you?
No, she's just the way she was last week.
What do you got, a Mexican hairless? Okay. So you were starting to tell us something that sounded really important off camera, Jim, before we get into it.
Well, sure it's important. I just lost, I don't know, a couple $1 million 3 times in the past month that if all I had to do was forward them, I don't know, $100 and some to cover expenses, and they'd send me $1 million that had been lost or somewhere.
Wow.
It's a pretty small investment for that much money.
I know, but
You're just tight.
it slipped my mind, and I didn't send them the money. So this happened 3 times in the last month. So
wow. The emails these are?
Emails, yeah.
Huh.
One was from Africa.
Oh, you were asking me off camera whether I didn't get your forward because stuff like that goes automatically to spam.
But you can look at your spam.
Well, I know, but I know who looks at it. If I don't know it's there, I don't look at it.
Well, so
but even though you forwarded it and it comes from you, it kind of examines the contents. I think some of the stuff.
Spam.
Well, I get that too.
I sent a spoof one of those letters to a friend in an email one time, and it got thrown in their spam basket. There was enough. I think if you just mentioned Nigeria to start with.
But I get the junk mail all the time. It goes to the junk mail box, and
you read all that?
No, I click on it to see because occasionally somebody.
Oh yeah, something important comes in. Yeah, I know.
So I just look to see what they are, and I just delete
I used
them
to
all.
do that. I maybe do that twice a year now. I just don't think to do it. So.
You don't think it's one of these Chinese hackers trying to get in your computer to see what you got in your bank account or anything, do you?
Could be because I got so much there that all they got.
Have you checked your Cayman Island accounts yet lately? Are they okay?
No, those I haven't checked.
God.
They're supposed to be pretty safe, so.
Oh, all right.
Wow.
They turn out broke sometime because you spend all the money.
Well, on the last, I didn't get it. In the last hour, you were talking about Misha and his classical
bagpiping.
Classical bagpiping, and I mentioned Beethoven, and it reminded me that when we went out to see Louisa last week, when we should have been here, it's got like one of these 60-inch flat screen TVs and fiber optic cable. And The Longest Day was on, and it was almost like seeing it in the freaking theater again.
Yeah.
It was so sharp, and the battle scenes in that are so good. They are really, really well done.
Ahead of their time.
Way ahead of their time. And you have to get to Private Ryan before anything like it is done. Before anything's even close.
Was it plasma TV or was it LCD?
I think it's an LCD, but I'm not sure. I know the picture was super sharp, super sharp. It was on some kind of HD channel, the HD movie channel that we don't get here. I don't think we do anyway. Anyway, so she's off doing something else, and she comes in and she says, you mind if we watch something else? I said, No, not. I said no, not really. I mean, I know what happens here, but I said, can we just wait till the ships come through the fog? It should be coming up in just a couple of minutes here. She doesn't even know what I'm watching. She says, okay, and so she's hanging around, and then I think it's one of the great moments in movie history where the German commandant of this bunker has been called in the middle of the night, and he spends the rest of the night there drinking coffee with the guys. He says, well, then the morning comes, he says, well, I just wasted a night. And he says, I guess I'll go home. Let me take one more look. And he goes out, and the fog is almost ethereal, lying out there on the ocean off of Utah Beach. And all of a sudden, the fog lifts just enough to see 4,000 ships coming right at him. And all you hear is, dun, 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 dun. Oh, my God. One thing of course, that was the V for victory. The Beethoven's first 3 notes are the Morse code for V. And earlier, there's a scene where the guys are on board the ships getting ready to cross the channel, and meanwhile, flying overhead are the gliders and the paratroop planes who land at midnight, several 6 hours ahead of the troops landing, and the last plane blinks out. Da, 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 on the tail light as it's flying by. I had forgotten that it was in the movie because it's in my book. I said, "Oh, that's where I got that
from." Now you have to put a little footnote in.
Oh my! What a great picture. Anyway, so Louisa sees this and she says, "Is this D-Day?" I said, "Yeah," and then she gradually comes around the side of the couch and snuggles in next to me, and she watched the whole rest of the movie. God, what would we have done without Robert Mitchum?
Yeah, great actors back then.
He won every battle of World War II for us. Yeah. I'd like to just put together some of his stuff he's done over the years, his World War II movies, because I think his very first movie was G.I. Joe, which is truly one of the knock your socks off war movies, because it doesn't pull any punches. There's no glory of war in G.I. Joe, and it was made, I think, in '45. And Burgess Meredith is Ernie Pyle. Yeah. And it follows them from North Africa through Italy and Monte Cassino and all this stuff, and it's just death and misery the whole way, and and it shows the courage of the men and what they're really facing. I mean, there's real blood, there's real death. It's
not glamour.
Yeah, there's no glamour in it whatsoever. It's a lousy job that has to be done, and that's Mitchum's first, and I guess he does that one. He ends up with doing. Remember Winds of War and War and Remembrance?
Yeah.
He plays the naval officer, and the aging naval officer in that. Great actor.
Over our hiatus for the show, on the History Channel, they had Bill O'Reilly's book. They made the movie Killing Deacon.
Really?
Yeah.
I missed
Bob, that. It is outstanding.
I saw part
the stuff as a history major, I knew a lot of this stuff, but the stuff that was in there and the amount that they showed that Booth went into organizing this massive plot to assassinate the top of our government, and what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, and what happened afterwards. That fact they found them. Even it's just unbelievable. It was really, really well done, and I have to give O'Reilly a lot of credit because it was well researched.
Some of those things I never knew.
Well researched, and it was an excellent thing. And I'm
I suppose it's an update of the great book Jim Bishop did back in the early '60s, the day Lincoln was shot, where, of course, Jim Bishop was a Hearst writer, and And you know, he does kind of that immediacy thing, like you are there.
Yeah.
And he does it minute by minute, what's going on during the course of the day. And he also did The Day Christ Died, was his.
I don't remember that.
And he really, he's the real author of 30 Seconds Over Tokyo. Yeah, it was so-and-so with Jim Bishop.
Oh, I don't know.
Good writer.
Yeah. I remember reading Day Lincoln Was Killed. We read that when I was in school for one of my book reports.
Or was that Bob Considine?
I didn't know
I could be wrong. It might have been Bob Considine did the 30 Seconds Over Tokyo. They were very similar writers. Anyway. Yeah, that's when Hearst was a really good news service.
Optimal word was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, before we went on there, you were talking about threats against Bob Woodward.
What's that?
Threats against Bob Woodward, huh?
Yeah.
From the White House. They got a little upset with him, writing something.
How dare he go off the plantation? Yeah. Well,
I forgot what the real wordings is that
You'll regret this.
Well, it doesn't even really matter. I mean, the fact that he now has all the Washington establishment piling up on Bob Woodward for daring to challenge, for daring to call Obama a liar, which is what he is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely outrageous. The whole sequester idea came from him. He said publicly afterwards that if the Congress passed anything to change the sequester, he would veto it.
Yeah.
All right, and now he comes out a year later and he's pointing fingers. Well, it was the Republicans in Congress who imposed this on us, and if they try to change it, if they don't change it, the world's going to come to an end. And the whole freaking thing was his idea to begin with. It came out of the White House.
Well, how many times did he flip-flop on the gay marriage thing?
I know, but that's flip-flopping. This is downright lying.
Well,
this is just completely rewriting history and expecting his dutiful press corps to print every word. And the guy has got some really deep. I mean, they said Nixon was paranoid. This guy,
his press secretary denied it.
Yeah,
He flatly denied it, right?
Well, that's what they do. They just blatantly say no, that never happened. When the record is clear. I mean, Obama said publicly that he would veto any changes.
And if you're a diehard Democrat, you're going to believe everything he says.
And now he's giving these speeches saying that all this disaster is going to happen because the Republicans are too inflexible to let me sequester. Well, so the Republicans put up a plan in the Senate to do exactly what he said, to give him the full and absolute authority to take the money, which is what they thought it said in the first place anyway, but to clarify what they thought it already said. And of course it goes down 51 to 49.
Right down party lines.
Yeah. So they're going to continue to lie, and the low-fo people are going to continue to believe him. But even the Washington Post called him on that. So
he's in front of the news camera more than any president that I can remember.
But not answering questions.
No. This isn't a press conference. This is
he's only going.
Sound bites.
He's only going with people who will
tell everybody how great he is and how great the Republicans.
Right.
Every day, he's somewhere.
Yeah.
If he's not playing golf, he's in front of the camera.
He's still campaigning.
There is one advantage to the sequester. According to Drudge, they've grounded Joe Biden, and I'll bet that has nothing to do with the sequester.
He said, "Go out and say something."
I noticed he hasn't grounded his wife. She's still going on her vacation.
That's so disgusting.
Yeah. So I don't know.
So what's the story with our boy Cuomo? Is he gonna?
He's self-destructing, don't you think?
He shot himself in the foot.
He was flying high. He was flying high, and he could. He was the obvious front runner to me for the next presidential nomination. Hillary has gotten too old. They may talk about her. I say she's not going to run at all. She's going to be close to 70 before the next election, and she's looked in awful health for a long time.
Yeah, she looks old.
Yeah.
So no, Hillary's not going to. And Cuomo's an obvious guy because he was running a fairly centrist administration. Keeping his budget under control to the extent that Democrats do, and saying the right thing, and really getting broad public support. And then he comes. Well, but then he comes out and he starts being Andrew Cuomo, who is really one of the biggest jerks in American politics.
You know he's running scared because of the ads he's gotten. Every hour there's an ad on that he's doing such a great job.
Oh well, yeah. Don't you love those Hurricane Sandy ads when all the usual Hollywood subjects? You got Al Pacino, and you got. Well, all those guys,
Usual list of suspects.
Yeah. All the usual suspects.
Yep.
Restore, rebuild,
Reject.
rebuild. And it's join Governor Andrew Cuomo in rebuilding New York. Well, wait a minute.
Call your congressman. Call your senator.
Yeah.
So anyway, he really, he did two things, earlier this year that have just galvanized the opposition to him. There are more abortions performed in New York State than anywhere else in the world, and he wants to make it easier. Which immediately gets a lot of people who might be saying, "Oh, that's not an issue. It's not an issue." All of a sudden, he made it an issue. He's making it an issue by making it worse. And then, of course, the gun thing was completely not fought through, raced through the legislature as an emergency piece of legislation. It's a terrible piece of legislation the way it's drafted. There is not even an exemption for the police. It amounts to essentially a confiscation of certain weapons, de facto confiscation, because most handguns carry clips that have more than 7 rounds in them. They don't make them for fewer rounds.
That's right.
I read in the paper.
And all of a sudden, everybody who owns these, the clips that they own are suddenly illegal. They've criminalized, half the gun owners immediately.
Some of the gun manufacturers and the munitions manufacturers, it was in the paper yesterday or today, that they will not sell to anybody in New York State. That means state police, local police.
Right. Yes. It started out with one gun company. Now there's like 5 or 6 of them are following suit, that they're refusing to sell to government agencies in states where the people are not allowed to have those.
They're targeting New York.
Yeah.
As the biggest one. What's going to happen in
Ithaca? Yeah.
Yeah,
well, as our sheriff Mike Amato has pointed out, there's no provision for they're saying as of March 1st you have to register all what they're calling assault weapons, which is just a label that means absolutely nothing. You have to register them, but there's no provision for how to register. Who do you register them with? How you go about doing this? Blah blah blah. And so all of a sudden, everybody who owns, one of these, if you've got an ordinary rifle that has a pistol grip, which is simply a means of holding it,
yeah, right, yeah,
that is now classified as an assault weapon. That alone. Like a radiator type device, I forget what it's called, on the end of a rifle that is designed to keep it cool.
Choke.
What?
It's a choke, I think. Yeah.
Whatever. Is the whole point is to dissipate the heat when you're firing the weapon. It has absolutely nothing to do with gunning down school children. But if you have this device, which is a radiator, all of a sudden you are now classified as owning an assault weapon.
Yeah.
And you hear these TV commentators, and they think, they really think that what is being banned is automatic weapons like Tommy guns and stuff that have been banned since 1932, for God's sakes. You know?
Yeah, they don't know what.
They don't know what they're talking about. You still, you know, a semi-automatic, all it means is that every time you pull the trigger, a bullet goes. But it's not like you pull the trigger and it goes.
No, that's an automatic.
Yes, that's an automatic. A semi-automatic just takes the place of your having to lock and load it. That's all. That's all.
No.
My son's called this morning. He said that he had to send in the form to get off the disclosure list.
Yeah.
For handguns.
Yeah, except that the names have already been released. So somebody's got them all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it proves, you know, it will not save a single life. Even if you, it's so, you know, you just wonder what they're thinking. We have to do something. We have to do something. We got to get the hands out of honest citizens and put guns out of the hands of honest citizens and put them in the hands of criminals where they belong.
Now, as a man of law,
yeah,
what happens with the provision they have in there that healthcare professional, mental health care professionals who deal with people who may be unbalanced, requiring them to disclose so these people can't have? Now, isn't that a violation of?
Well, it's not only that, it's a bad idea because what you're doing is discouraging people from getting the help they need. You know, if I'm depressed and I want to go to a mental health professional, say, hey, look, what can I do?
All of a sudden you're on the list.
Yeah, all of a sudden you're on the list. Yeah. And there was another, there was a federal provision that went in some years ago that we learned about when I was on the bench, that if you have an order of protection against you under federal law, you're not allowed to own any kind of firearm. Well, that's pretty outrageous when you consider that an awful lot of orders of protection are entered with the just to get them out of the way. In other words, no, I'm not going to have any contact with this person anyway. I'll agree to an order of protection. Mm-hmm. In other words, they're done on consent without having been convicted of anything. As a matter of fact, you get up and you say, "I'm making, I'll agree to an order of protection without admission as to any wrongdoing." Fine, there's your order of protection. So well, all of a sudden, without any warning, these people are all of a sudden deprived of their right to keep and bear arms without any means of review or looking at the circumstances of the case to see whether it's appropriate. There are already provisions under the law that that you were able to hold a hearing and find that this person should not have, and you were allowed to ban them in the order of protection from having firearms if it's appropriate to the case. But this was simply a means of scattershooting these things, and the liberal judges were thrilled that these provisions were in there, and they were secret. I mean, they were not.
If the Constitution says that I've got a right to carry a rifle, or a gun, how can the state step in and say, okay, he can't because we don't like him? Or we don't like.
Well, that's a good question. The same law should apply to everybody, and the gun permitting process is all done arbitrarily. So there are a number, but of course that the Second Amendment is a personal right was only established a few years ago by the Supreme Court. So now there's a lot of litigation going on this issue everywhere. The right to carry, concealed carry, and all that stuff. Because you can't, in New York, you cannot have a concealed carry without a permit from a county judge.
Mm-hmm. And don't you need an additional one to go into New York City with a?
I think New York City, you can't. I don't think it's no good in New York City at all.
I got to carry here, but I can't carry there.
You can't go to New York.
And if you've got a right to carry issued to you in another state, it's not good in New York.
Well,
there's no reciprocity.
There's one
As a matter of
state,
fact, you can go to...
there's one state that I read it somewhere is that with one state you've got a right to carry in, I don't know, 5 or 6 different states because of their government.
Well, right. Well, they have reciprocal agreements with the different states. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And the flip side, or not exactly the flip side, but there's also the issue of open carry. That's a telephone. We pay no attention to it. No, we don't answer the phone when we're on the air. People don't know by now that this is the show with no name.
That's right.
There. But anyway, no. But there have been a lot of states where it's perfectly legal to do the Dodge City thing and have the gun holstered to you, and people have been getting arrested for exercising that right, and there is absolutely no provision of law saying it's illegal. But you know,
when I had the store up in Johnstown, a fella came in, and he had a sidearm, and at the same time, there was a cop there that I used to come visit me in the store all the time. I said, Paul, I said, he's got a gun on his side. So he just went over to me. He says, let me see your permit. So the guy showed him his permit. So he says, he's legal. He's got a permit. He can carry that gun. I said, fine. I said, but it scared me.
Well, we're so used to the government telling us what we can do and what we can't do that.
And how to do what we can.
Now in New York City, of course, if you order a large pizza or two from the local pizza delivery place, they're not allowed to bring you a 2-liter bottle of soda because Mayor Bloomberg says you can't. What insanity? What insanity?
He can bring you a 2-liter bottle, but he can't give you 2 containers.
No, you can't. No,
16 ounces.
The 2-liter, you cannot deliver a 2-liter bottle of soda.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Oh, I thought it was just a container.
Oh, no. That's why they're calling him the soda jerk. I mean, you know, it's fantastic. You know, you go down to Chinatown or any street corner in Midtown where they sell stuff, and you lean over and you can get a copy of a movie that was released yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But we're cracking down on the size of soda bottles, for God's sakes.
Do we know
because it's not good for you?
We know soda's not good for you.
Yeah.
And we know that drinking too much is not good for you. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
You're ordering a 2-liter bottle with a large pizza, which you can't eat all of yourself either. You know?
You have to, probably New York is going to have a personal pan pizza.
Are they going to save one single person from getting obese because they tell you can't buy a 2-liter bottle?
No. He's such a
It's not. It's absolute nonsense to even be talking about it. Yeah. There are people who think that stuff is all wonderful.
Ridiculous.
Every time they open their mouth, the government is going to do more for you. You know, we have a right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. But there's nothing in there that says your happiness has to come free or provided for you.
Oh, man.
You know.
What did it... who was it? The chairman of the board of supervisors was talking about what the actual all government Medicaid costs are in this county. It was like something like $100 million a year.
Yeah.
You know, once you add in the state and federal share to the local share, $100 million a year in Montgomery County we're spending on Medicaid. Whew. In a case the other day I was helping somebody else with, they're trying to do an eviction, and these people are getting Section 8 housing aid, which covers like 3/4 of the rental. The rent's like less than $600 a month, and like $480 of it's coming from Section 8, which I think is probably totally federal funds, right? And the other $120 or whatever it is, Now think about this when you think of what your mortgage payment is every month. The other $120 is coming from the county, from the DSS. So these people are paying absolutely nothing for their housing. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. And then I'm sure they get HEAP on top of it and everything, so they're not paying for their fuel. They're not. And you just, yeah.
I know a girl that her rent is $550 a month. She pays $5 a month. The rest comes from HUD.
Yeah, $5.
$5 a month. The rest comes from HUD.
Yeah. And now now instead of the food stamps, they issue these
benefit cards.
These cards that you can use anywhere for anything.
There was another radio station in town that
other than us?
Other than us, yeah. And they don't have a very large audience, but I turn in once in a while to get the weather report and school closing and the thing. And they finished up the other day that the retired former city fireman was saying he was up at Turning Stone the other day, and he asked the guy up there, what forms of identification do you take in here? And he said, well, we take New York State driver's license as a form of identification. We take New York State non-driver's licenses. We take out-of-state. We take U.S. and foreign passports. And we take SSI cards. So if you've got your benefit card, that's your ID you can use up at the casino to get in and play. You know, I have no trouble. There are people who need help and assistance.
Definitely.
Okay,
definitely.
No doubt about it. But there comes a point in time that what they receive, that monies and the amount of monies that provide them with anything imaginable is wrong. Now I could be wrong. I could be wrong on this, but I'm thinking back when I was younger, I was always under the assumption that when people had the food stamps, that there was a limited number of things that you could purchase with those things, which were necessities. Yeah. You know, which was good. I mean, people need these things, and we'll help you with those things. But now we can go and you can punch in and get with your PIN number and get cash out and spend it anything.
Wow,
there's.
I'm not exactly sure how these things work, but there was a whole racket where people would come in and buy 3 grapes. Mm-hmm. And they would weigh the grapes, and it would come to like 5 cents, and they'd complain about how expensive they were, and then they'd get $20 in cash back at the register. You know, after paying for the 3 grapes.
Yeah, I heard that.
Well, that's what some of those stores in Schenectady were getting busted for. They were taking, they were paying, $300 for a $600 card, so people had to cash do what they want with it. Now the owner of the store has got all the
and of course, even under the old food stamp system, there was a well-greased underground where you could just go and trade them for cash at a discount, and the small markets were getting in on that, and they just cash it in. Yeah. Well, who's going to audit them and figure out what were purchased with these particular food stamps?
They don't audit the big boys. They're not going to audit the little guys.
So, well, it's easier that way, and there's no way to audit it and all that. Well, okay. Half the country's on food stamps.
No, that's a tipping point. We've got more people taking out than are putting in.
Well, let's just talk about health insurance for a moment. I pay health insurance for my family. Yeah, right.
We do too.
Actually, my wife does. Her employer pays part of that. Mm-hmm. We pay every time we get a paycheck. We pay for some elderly person on Medicare out of that. We pay income taxes, some of which come back in Medicaid. And other forms of health programs. Our regular state dollars are used to subsidize Child Health Plus and Family Plus plans that are over and above Medicaid. You've got your county taxes that you pay heavily. 25% of the cost of Medicaid comes out of your local property taxes, or sales tax, whatever you want to talk. So when you think about it, when in addition to the extraordinary amount I'm paying just to keep my own family healthy, I'm paying for several other people completely at the same time.
I heard yesterday my nephew stopped. He had to go to the doctor's. He had to show a picture ID. along with his insurance card. And I said, your picture ID? He said, yeah. He says, because people are letting other people use their insurance cards.
Yeah.
I said, what? He says, yeah. He says, you go to the doctors, just show them the insurance card. That's who they charge it to.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah.
Well, some of them do. And
Right. That just happened to me recently. That I had to bring out my driver's license when I went to the doctors.
It's the first I heard that.
Yeah. Well, I think it just started. It must have just started because that's the first time I've had to do it.
Wow.
But the doctor's my cousin. You know, he knows who I am.
The nurse doesn't, though.
Well, the nurse knew who I was, too. Everybody knows who I am.
That's right.
Except the people at the Union League Club in Midtown Manhattan who threw me out the other day, but that's another story.
Did they throw Petrucci out or just you?
They talked to him and wanted to know why he was letting me in.
why you were with him? Why you associate people such
as a matter of fact, they didn't even address me directly.
Did he have a good explanation why he associates with people like you?
I think it was the jacket I was wearing. My wife told me to put it in the wash, and I didn't.
Oh. You didn't wear your Red Sox jacket, though.
No. That might have got me. I did manage to go upstairs and see the portraits of the presidents.
We got kicked out of a place in Rochester because we weren't members. We got a big sign there, lunch, so much. I said, well, let's stop here. We went in, the waitress was starting to seat us. And the guy come over, he says, are you guys members? He says, no. Sorry, we can't serve you. I said,
well, I told you how I got kicked out of, I didn't get kicked out, but I used the wrong fork in the 21 Club, and the waiter came over and whipped all my silverware away and gave me a whole new set. This can't be the fork for the salad. And yet it is the one on the outside. What do I do? Oh, yeah.
Only in America.
It's a great country. It really is. Yeah. It really is. You know,
unless you live in Amsterdam.
There is still a delightful anarchy about this country, and I don't mean this in the sense of the guys who are blowing up buildings, but there's a free spirit in this country that is not matched anywhere else in the world, really. Maybe Australia. For example, this is just a small example. BBC America, and really I think the BBC in London, has redone some old Law and Order episodes. It's called Law and Order UK or something, right?
Yes.
And they're the same scripts as the old Jerry Orbach ones. And you watch these, and you recognize the plots because you've probably seen them 20 times already and stuff like that. But there's nothing like a wisecracking Jerry Orbach or the guys horsing around, and everything is just strictly business, and everything is strictly about solving the crime and all serious and everything else. But this. The looseness that we have in this country, this casualness about the way we do everything, even serious stuff, is a really good thing.
There's BBC America. There's a program I've been watching. It's called Ripper Street.
Yes.
And it initially started with the investigator who's taken on the Jack the Ripper case, but they've moved on to some other things. And it's funny when they go, but there's no guns. Okay, I mean the Bobbies don't have any guns. They don't even have a Bobby. They don't even have a Billy Club.
Right.
You know, and they're very, they're very formal, even in this Victorian underworld that they're involved in. And it is there's a distinctive. We are a unique place in the world. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's no place else like it. Like you said, maybe Australia, maybe Canada a little bit, but there's no place else that has the "don't tell me what to do" attitude that we all possess here.
Right, and I can say whatever I want.
And we aren't bridled here.
I mean, you can't even say what you want in Canada. They've got a commission that prosecutes people for because they don't like what you say.
We just we have no filter on things that we say or what we believe we can do here. And this is even for the people who know how to behave and how to do things. We don't expect us live under this microscope, this that exist many places. We don't take to the idea of having somebody tell us what we can and can't do in all aspects of our lives. You know, though our government certainly is involved in more things we'd like, it's not involved anywhere nearly as much as every place else in the world.
And we've got the only real free speech in the Constitution that anybody has that's enforced. I mean, when you see this stuff going on in Europe, where you're not allowed to say this about this person or that about that person, well, excuse me, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of people naturally were upset when the Supreme Court upheld the flag burning, that was constitutional. A lot of, understandably upset, because those are fighting words when you burn our flag. But Scalia wrote the opinion on that, and it came down right after the Tiananmen Square massacre. And it was like saying as boldly as you possibly can that even as heinous an offense as burning your country's flag is still going to be allowed in this country without arresting people for expressing their opinion, however vulgar and awful it may be. And around the same time, I remember they were interviewing a Chinese student who was in America. And he was just astonished. This was during the first Bush administration. He was astonished at, the elder Bush, that the freedom that we had in this country. Because in his country, you know, you say something about the government, you're locked up for 6 years. He says, here I can say, down with Bush! And nothing happens.
Yeah. We will disagree with you and tell you you're acting like an idiot and you shouldn't be doing that, but you can do it.
But even when you're acting like an idiot, you can get away with it.
Yeah, it is. We're lucky to be where we are. You know, we're lucky we've grown up in a country that allows us.
It's just recently where they're putting somebody in jail for streaking. It used to be a big joke before, but now they just
well,
now it's indecent exposure.
You know, but going along with that, you know, we can say what we want, but you still can't say certain things because it's not politically correct. Because we take now compared to when we grew up, everything you have to take as serious as a heart attack. Don't be making fun of these people. Don't be I mean. It's
precisely because you can do that makes us a free country.
Right, and it's funny, some of this stuff.
And insulting each other. We insult each other all the time.
We do.
And these college campuses. It's why Jonah Goldberg calls it liberal fascism. I would bring the book out. Actually, it's probably still sitting here from the last show.
I read in the paper there 3 weeks ago that some guy got arrested for mooning a cop.
That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. If anything's protected speech, that is.
I read that. I thought that was hilarious.
But the flip side is, we just said, you can do what you want unless you're a Democrat and you can't do anything that disagrees with them.
Right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, people are getting thrown out of college for exercising their opinions. Which, I mean, the whole point of a university is to
examine all points of opinion without being required to conform to any one particular.
In Canada, if you can be as a preacher, you can be arrested for saying that the Bible says you can't have gay sex. You can be arrested for that. They're being arrested on hate crimes for preaching their religion, what the religion says. But it's certain religions, there are certain protected religions.
That's right.
And it's still a place where you can say,
There's places in the world that you couldn't have our show. It's hard for people to get this show, and they have to take it, go off the Radio Free America to get this show.
That's true.
Well, that's why we're hiding in this back room so nobody comes after us.
They don't know where we are. Come and get us, copper.
You know,
Well.
but keep going on this line. You know, when we first went to Russia with the students, we met people who did just that. They listened to Radio Free Europe.
Yeah.
And
Really?
that's how they learned about what was going on. And we were in this one city, Novosibirsk, and we were the first Americans that they'd ever seen, since the end of the war. And they were just so enthralled to see us and listen to what we had to say about anything, because they had been so restricted for so many years, not having a chance to hear really what other people's opinion was, except through what they got over the
It seems like a million years ago now, doesn't it, Gavin? And
Yeah.
it wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't. It was not that long ago.
Do you remember Reagan's speech to the students when he went to Moscow? He's got this big statue of Lenin, or bust of Lenin, behind him, and he's talking to them about freedom of speech and religion and all this stuff, and he was free to say what he wanted at that point, and they were hanging on every word. Hanging on every word. They got his statue up in St. Petersburg and in Warsaw,
When we went, we stayed in the Molodoshnaya, which is the big blue hotel in Moscow, where the student groups who came to visit stayed. And you went from the 4th floor to the 6th floor, because there was no 5th floor, because on the 5th floor was the listening outpost, the KGB. That was their floor in the hotel, so they could keep track of
everything that was going on.
Every floor, you had to turn your key in when you left your room to the floor lady, so she knew when you left and when you came back. You couldn't take your key out with you, because they wanted to keep track. And this was, just as everything started to happen back in '88 and '89, and there were still huge remnants of what had been there forever. My wife, she grew up, she had to go to pioneer camp, which was the young communist camps that the kids were sent to, and she had to wear the uniform and a little red tie and everything. And it's to be here is just so different. And there's people, and I don't think it's a whole lot different in China today than it was in Russia 30 years ago.
Sure.
Maybe in North Korea, you still have people living under very controlled circumstance of every aspect of their lives, from the time they grow up to the time they can smile, to the time they have to applaud, and the time they go to bed.
My brother Tim's father-in-law was exiled from China, lost contact with his family for decades, and finally, after Nixon's first trip, it opened up a little bit. Mao was still alive, but he was actually one of the first expatriates to be allowed to return to China. And he goes over there, and the first thing they do is assign this guy to be with him at all times. And he says, well, who is this? He says, this is your interpreter. He says, I speak fluent Chinese. I do not need an interpreter. Nevertheless, we're here to help you, Yeah. But they watched every single thing he did, and everybody was still wearing the official clothes, the Mao jackets, and stuff like that. And I tell this story on my blog, but I think it's in my book, The Judge Report, as well. On this trip, he's carrying an American briefcase with him. Nothing extraordinary about it whatsoever, but everybody he meets is enthralled with this briefcase. They think it's the grandest thing they've ever seen. And when he comes home, there's slide after slide after slide of this relative or that relative standing there holding the briefcase, beaming. All right? And everybody they meet is in dire poverty. All these relatives of theirs, his wife's as well. They end up leaving everything they own behind. They have only the clothes on their back and bedroom slippers when they leave China, because they give everything away. He tries to give the briefcase to one of his relatives, and they said, no, we can't take that. This is too fine a thing. The local commissars don't have anything as good as this, and we will be chastised and
who do you think you are?
Yeah, for owning such a thing. You think you're better than me. You think you're the #1 dad. Yeah. But they were terrified of even such a small thing as owning an American briefcase, because they would be sent to re-education camp. You know, and that's totalitarianism, and that's what people are just looking at as, well, that's nuts. Oh, so it's a good thing not to drink a 32-ounce soda. Yeah, that's none of your business. Yeah. It's not. Absolutely none of your business. If a restaurant wants to put lard in my food, as long as I know about it, I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the government's job to decide how much salt people.
No, you know, too much salt's not good for you, and beyond that, it's your choice.
And how much is not good for you is entirely dependent on your personal situation.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And you know, think of the days when the only way you controlled thyroid problems is having iodized salt, right?
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Anyway, had enough?
I can't think of anything unless nothing earth-shattering in the city going on.
Well, one more.
Well, the land bank. They're discussing that.
No, everything is discussing. How about the headline, Ada to get more involved? Right, there's somebody just noticing they haven't done anything for 6 years. Yeah.
Well, they're all her people. All her
I know, and you know, the same with the land bank. You know, we had that program where we were actively marketing all the city properties, and constantly we met every month. We took bids. We examined the people who were going to research it. It was a good working program, which was completely dismantled as soon as we left office. And so now they got this land bank, which hopefully someday we'll be able to do something. Everything is a plan to plan to plan to plan to plan. Somewhere in the distant future, something might happen.
Sunshine, as the Russians call it, sunshine future.
Is that what they call it?
They call it sunshine future. Yeah, always in the future, it's going to be nice.
Sounds like a good song. Think about it. Okay, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see about whether the mayor gets that job with the Canal Corp or not. There's some talk they've been laying off a lot of people on the Thruway Authority and such, and so.
Well, Stratton is under the gun for a couple things, I guess. So maybe that's the prologue to what's going to happen.
Wow. Well.
We'll see.
You're going to have to wait and see, folks. We don't have all the answers all the time, and even if we do, we sometimes hoard them, so we have something to talk about next week.
That's right.
And we'll be back. I'm Bob Going, Jim Nikosha, Gavin Murdoch. We'll be back next week with more of the show with no name.